Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways.
Danger probe. Sorry.
Hi. Hey, I'm Joe, joined by my co-hosts
Devin.
and
Steve.
and we're going to talk about a really, really weird mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Today we're going to talk about the Vatican murders.
Yeah, this one's tough.
Yeah. It's kind of convoluted. This is controversial. Our mystery starts May 4th, 1998. It was a dark and stormy night. Yeah.
Was it though?
You stole that right out of a mystery novel, didn't you?
Yeah, that is, you know, dark and stormy night is considered like the
Yeah.
one of the worst phrases or one of the worst sentences.
I know.
Yeah. So I had to throw it in.
Okay.
I don't know how stormy it was. I hear it was rainy, so I just sort of bumped that up. A little bit to
Artistic
stormy.
license.
Yeah, exactly. Now back to our mystery. It begins in Vatican City. You probably all know where that place is. If not, pause and go do a Google. A young guy named Cedric Tournay entered the barracks of the Swiss Guards, which is next to the Apostolic Palace, which is where the Pope lives.
I can already tell that I'm gonna mispronounce literally all of these words.
Oh yeah. There's a few in here that are, there's one that I didn't even try to figure out how to pronounce.
Great.
It. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this one was tough. I'll
Yeah.
tell you right now. I told Joe earlier. Some of these words and names that are in this story, I'm really trying to figure out pronunciations, and this is all based in Italy. So I'm watching Italian news. I don't know Italian, trying to pick out somebody's name to know how to pronounce it. It's harder than you would think.
Yeah, I know.
Oh well, it's Italian. Never mind. I'll be great at it.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's right. You're part Italian, right?
Yeah.
So back to Cedric. He entered the barracks of the Swiss Guards. He had a gun with him, a SIG 9mm automatic, which actually wasn't unusual because he was a Lance Corporal in the Swiss Guard, and they actually do carry guns.
I guess I didn't realize that. I thought they just had those weird the
halberds.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have swords, halberds, pistols, and submachine guns.
Odd. That's
Yeah.
an odd collection of weapons.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did not actually take the trouble to find this out, but I might research it anyways. I'm curious about if they actually get training on how to use their swords and halberds.
They do.
They do.
They do. They do get training, and at that time, their target practice requirement was 1 day a year. Mm-hmm. That's all they had to practice.
That's all. That's all I have to practice.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm sorry.
And the Swiss Guard, for those of you who don't know what the Swiss Guard is, it's a small army of Swiss mercenaries who guard the Pope and the Vatican. They have been for, I think this is like the 500th anniversary this year that they've served the Vatican. And as I've already said, what they're armed with. I also want to tell you just a brief background, a little biographical information about our cast of characters, which is basically, there's two main people here. Of course, we've already talked about Tournay. He was 23 and Swiss French. The French speakers in Switzerland are maybe 15% of the population.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, about that, roughly. And so for obvious reasons, they were a minority in the Swiss Guard. And Tournay had been with the Swiss Guard for about 3 years and had recently been promoted to the Lance Corporal.
So he was doing okay.
He was doing all right. Yeah. The other protagonist here, Colonel Alois Esterman, who we'll be meeting shortly, was the commandant of the Guard. He'd been in the Guard. He joined in 1977, lived in South America and Argentina for 2 years, and then came back in July 1980. He rejoined the Swiss Guard as an officer. And then he was promoted a couple of times. Eventually, he was appointed as the acting commander of the Swiss Guard. And this is a point of contention. Apparently, there were people who did not want to make his appointment permanent as commandant. And so, and reportedly that they even included perhaps Pope John Paul II.
Oh.
Yeah, which is interesting because he served as John Paul II's bodyguard for years. And he traveled all over the world with him. And John Paul spoke highly of him, so it's a bit odd. So I'm not entirely sure that that's true or not. But this Vatican stuff, it's so tortured and convoluted, as you can tell. Yeah. And also, by the way, Esterman was Swiss-German, meaning that he was among the majority of Swiss people who speak German, which also, by the way, is not like regular old German. It's a totally different dialect. So there's a big language barrier between Swiss French and Swiss German. which leads to problems in the Swiss Guard. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and only you have to be, what is it, 18 to 25 and natively born Swiss to be in the Swiss Guard.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was like 18 to 30. but-
it's something I can't remember the
It's
exact
young,
age range.
right?
Yeah.
It's you have to be a
You have
younger
to-
guy.
And you have to have served in the military.
I
You have to be a
believe-
Catholic. You have to be at least 5'8" tall.
Is that true?
Yeah, actually, it's have to be more precise. 5 foot 8.5 tall.
Is that true?
That's
Yes.
true. Yeah,
Why?
You can't be any shorter.
Yeah. I guess they want the guards to be tall and imposing people.
I guess I
Yeah.
could never be a Swiss Guard then.
No, you're about
the
a
height
foot
thing.
short. Yeah.
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 All the height things.
Plus, you're not a male, and I'm not. Are you Catholic?
No.
Are you Swiss?
No.
You're almost there.
I'm halfway at least, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is this whole language barrier and cultural differences in the guard, which leads to a little bit of tension, I hear.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Is I was doing a bunch of research on this, and you said it's 15% of the Swiss or French
Yeah.
Swiss. Is that right?
Roughly, actually, I just saw the numbers on Wiki, and then compared to the overall.
Well, that sounds
population.
very
And
consistent
I
with the
just-
things that I've
I
read.
didn't use a calculator. I just they're rough out in my mind. So
But the
it could
point
be
is-
12%.
The
14,
point
I don't know.
is that when the guys who the Swiss Guard and they come in, everybody in the Swiss Guard speaks Swiss German, so they don't even know the language to start with, so they're already at a disadvantage. Which
Yeah,
is,
that's right, because they learn German in school, but it's more standard German.
yeah,
like just
yeah,
speaking German.
yeah. That's exactly the problem, and that so
Yeah.
it's these guys are just they're already a peg down from day one.
Yeah. So Tournay went to the apartment of Alois Esterman, and he was let in by Esterman's wife, whose name was Gladys Meza Romero. She was Venezuelan, by the way.
Of course she was.
Of course she
She's
was.
been an actress or a
No, she-
model?
I heard she used to be a model.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
model. Okay.
Yeah. He was let in by the wife. He pulled out his gun, shot Esterman twice, killing him, and then shot Gladys Romero twice, also killing her.
Whoa.
And I might say, by the way, too, there's actually no actual evidence that he shot Esterman first and the wife second.
No.
There actually isn't. That was pointed out by a pathologist, actually, not one of the Vatican pathologists.
Esterman was in a chair and fell out of the chair after being shot. So it's presumed that he was shot first because if his wife had been shot first, he'd have stood up and started, moving. And so he wouldn't have been slumped and fallen out of a chair.
Unless he shot the wife and was sitting and listen. I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little
Time for the
bit.
theories, yeah. I mean, or he could have, he could have gone bing, 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 bing. He could have shot Esterman
Back
once.
and forth.
Yeah, wife once.
Kneecapped him.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about this in theories, maybe.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. Then after that, he dropped to his knees, put the gun in his mouth, and pulled the trigger.
That escalated real quickly.
I know. Yeah, it's kind of a sad thing, actually. But anyway, so we have a murder-suicide thing going on here.
Do we?
But yeah, that's the question. Some people say not. There are a lot of theories. Some people say it was actually a triple murder.
Well, it is
Yeah.
the Vatican.
Committed by dark forces
Yeah.
within the Vatican. So we'll talk about all those theories a little bit later on.
Yeah, it's pretty muddy.
Yeah.
It is. And frankly, there's a little disinformation in there about things like the Masons and stuff like that. And,
I didn't even come across
Yes,
that.
this is going to be the best
Yeah.
episode.
yeah. You love the Masons, don't
I
you?
do.
Yeah. So what was his motive?
Good question.
Yeah, well, apparently, as you know, the French and the German guys and the Swiss guards apparently have there's a little thing there.
Little
The
clash.
Like a murdery thing or just like a thing?
No, you'd think that they have murders more often if that were the thing.
Yeah, or
yeah.
fights or scuffles or...
Yeah, but apparently, the German speakers do dominate the Swiss Guard. Apparently, there was talk that Tournay resented that and resented the way the Guard was run. Apparently, his relationship with Esterman was strained, according to many accounts. There was a guy who wrote a book about this, a British journalist named John Trelane, and he talked to a lot of ex-guards and documented that Esterman did not like Tournay.
No, he seemed to he had something out for it. It was really weird. It was
Yeah.
Tournay specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, he seemed to single him out.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I never understood what the basis of that was, other than some disciplinary issues that are called out.
Sometimes you just don't like a dude.
Yeah, I know that happens. But some of his ex-guard friends said that as far as disciplinary issues, there were a few, but no worse than anybody else. Tournay and some of the other French-speaking guards, as they were in the minority, they often complained of harassment by the German-speaking components of the Swiss Guard, and especially Esterman. An ex-guard who was a friend of Tournay's said, and I'm going to quote here, Esterman couldn't stand having French speakers around. He'd always tell us, "You Swiss French have no place in the Swiss Guard. There is no room for you here." So apparently he was kind of a bigot.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Esterman and Tournay were not best buds. But was that enough to cause murder?
Yeah, that's
That's the thing.
No. Especially after 3 years, I guess you kind
They
of.
would kind of build up.
I generally think that sort of thing comes to a head earlier than that. 3 years is a long time to kind of stick it out. That.
Well, I
Sure.
think that he might have stuck it out because typically after 3 years of service in the Swiss Guards, you're awarded a medal, which is a Benemerenti medal, which is this cool medal that the Pope awards to people who have done service to the Catholic Church.
for 3 years.
Yeah, after 3 years, typically you get this medal, and so he might have decided to stick it out for 3 years because get the medal, and the medal would probably look good in your resume.
Well, I was going to say,
Yeah.
I think the minimum tour is also 3 years.
Yeah, I think there's that too.
Well, it's the I wouldn't say the minimum tour. The accepted, you're an okay individual for having been in the Swiss Guard is to be able to hang on for 3 years.
Oh, I guess. Yeah, I mean, sure. But if you're going to murder somebody, why wait 3 years?
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're going to get your medal or your commendation, and then if you're going to kill. Anyways.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Just keep
okay.
talking about this story.
Now let's get back to our mystery. Within minutes of the murders, by the way, were discovered. The bodies were discovered by a nun who lived in the apartment next door, who heard a loud noise.
Yeah.
And so she came and checked on some bodies, and then sent out the alarm. The Vatican sealed off the apartment. No one was allowed near the scene of the crime, including Italian police.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Technically, the Vatican is an independent state.
Yeah.
So,
And they have their own police force.
yeah, they don't have to let the Italian police in.
No, not at all. Within 3 hours, the bodies were discovered at 9 p.m. I forgot to mention that. About midnight, in about 3 hours, there had not yet been an autopsy, of course. A Vatican spokesman named Joaquin Navarro Valls issued a statement on behalf of the Vatican, which I'll quote here. Quote, "The captain commander of the Pontifical Swiss Guard, Captain Alois Esterman, was found dead in his home together with his wife, Gladys Meza Romero, and Vice Corporal Cedric Cornet. The bodies were discovered shortly after 9 p.m. by a neighbor from the apartment next door who was attracted by loud noises. From a first investigation, it is possible to affirm that all three were killed by a firearm. Under the body of the Vice Corporal, his regulation weapon was found. The information which has emerged up to this point allows for the theory of a, quote, fit of madness, unquote, by Vice Corporal Tournay, unquote."
That sounds like the sort of thing that people were diagnosed with in the 1800s.
Yeah, fit of
It's also a
madness.
Fit of madness.
It's a super quick we know what's happened. 3 hours later, we figured it all out. Like, that's such a quick leap.
Yeah, I know. It really is. It might be that they talked with Swiss
Other
Guards.
officers.
And they said that there was bad blood between those two. Perhaps that was it. But the quick leap to judgment has kind of haunted the Vatican ever since, because people have either accused them of going out and rendering judgment without knowing the facts, or maybe they already knew too much. Yeah. Maybe they know more than they let on.
And they were leaking this. They were giving their official story too fast. Is that
Yeah.
what that's supposed to mean?
Yeah. Yeah, about 24 hours after the murder, another Vatican spokesman said that Tournay was, quote, an individual suffering from the psychological disorder of paranoia, unquote. Although he had never met Tournay, and there's none of his ex-guard friends or co-workers, whatever you want to call them, ever said that he was paranoid. Yeah.
No, he was angry, but not paranoid.
Yeah, well, he probably had good reason to be angry. Another claim that somebody put out was that Tournay was high on marijuana at the time of the murder.
I know I've been saying this a lot lately, but that's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my entire life.
That because he was high, he did the killing?
On pot.
I'm sorry, but every pothead that I've ever known doesn't get off the couch.
Yeah.
They don't have the motivation to go hunt somebody down.
Well, like,
Yeah,
even
I
if
know.
you do have the motivation, the paranoia isn't like, oh, I better kill this person because blah, blah, blah. Okay, I can't speak for everybody, right? But my sense is that the paranoia that comes with pot is like, oh my god, everybody's looking at me, everything is going wrong. It's not, oh, I know, I can get away with murder right now.
Yeah, no.
That's
No.
the dumbest thing.
That's
Yeah.
a completely different drug, and
Yeah.
it was. I think it was trace amounts were found in his
so he
bloodstream.
had a doobie like
At some
freaking
point.
A week
a
before.
month before. Yeah, okay.
And supposedly, when they searched his room, they found a couple of what did they call marijuana cigarette
Oh, it's a
butts?
joint?
They were little joints.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
in
okay.
a drawer. Like,
Yeah.
But God knows he might have once a month or so couldn't sleep and took a hit of pot and that was it. I mean, but
Yeah.
that doesn't drive you to kill somebody.
Not generally.
God does know, Steve.
Haven't you ever heard of reefer madness?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, anyway, away from pot, back to our mystery. The Vatican performed autopsies on
Okay.
bodies, and they were sworn to secrecy and supposedly kept no written notes.
What?
Yeah, I find that hard to believe.
No.
The Vatican documents everything.
Yeah. Oh,
They
yeah.
have huge
But this is-
troves of documents.
Yeah, but this is out there. If you go out and look this mystery up, that's what they all say. They kept no notes. I find that impossible to
That's
believe.
literally impossible.
So I read Fournier's book,
Uh-huh.
the City of Secrets.
Oh,
No.
Fullaine?
Or Follaine, sorry. I don't know
Yeah.
Fournier. I don't know who
Yeah.
Fournier is, but Follaine's book. And
Sorry, who's full?
he's the author that wrote City of Secrets that Joe was talking about
Oh, over
Yeah.
briefly
here. Yeah,
earlier.
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Because he did a lot of the research on this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was reading it, I swear I never saw they never kept a record.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was they were sworn to secrecy and those documents were sealed away.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Vatican hung on to them, but they
Exactly.
just don't talk about it. Nobody ever knows.
No, there's not much point in doing an autopsy without taking notes. Yeah, I know. By the way, the book City of Secrets by John Follaine, a British journalist, is available on audible.com. Just kidding.
No.
But actually, I wanted to mention it now anyway because I'm going to quote some people a little later on, and most of the quotes that I've got about this mystery are from that book.
Great.
He
They're from-
seems to have done the authoritative work because he did a ton of legwork, hunting
He did.
people down.
He did, and so a lot of the people who spoke to him are the quotes that I got from those people I got out of his book.
So what did the Vatican coroners? Is that who does
Yeah,
autopsies?
yeah.
What'd they find?
They it was consistent with murder-suicide, what with all the bullet holes and stuff. Yeah. They also found that Tournay had a brain tumor or
Sure.
a small lesion on his frontal lobe.
Okay.
Yeah, and their theory is that his behavior was either caused by the tumor or by medication that he was taking for the tumor.
I think this would have been a really great time for me to reach out to our experts about,
About tumors.
and yeah, if it causes behavior like that.
But it probably, the frontal lobe that's where a lot of your behavior is centered in your brain, But it would have. They found a really small, almost like a cyst, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't think it was
Something
big enough.
teeny.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But also that it seems like the behavior would have been erratic. It wasn't like, that seems like the sort of thing, and again, this is total conjecture, I have no idea, but
Yeah.
it seems like that would be an escalating thing, right? You would
Yeah.
be having behavior problems
Yep.
as a trend,
Yeah, and nobody.
not
nobody
as a, you're totally cool and then suddenly you go shoot a couple people.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't snap.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
just in my impression, but again,
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
that, it starts out small, and as the tumor gets bigger and bigger, you get more weird.
Yeah.
But nobody reported any of that.
yeah.
The Vatican also noted that he'd recently broken up with his Roman girlfriend,
Oh no.
and that he had recently received a reprimand from Esterman for staying out all night and not coming back to the Vatican. Apparently, for a Swiss Guard to do that, you have to get permission. And
Yeah.
he didn't know without permission, so it's kind of like being AWOL. So we got a letter of reprimand.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think it's one level of rank you're able to be out till midnight. The next level you're able to be out till 1 o'clock in the morning. I think is how basically the curfew is 1 a.m.
Yeah.
and then everybody has to be in.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. You're technically out of the country.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. And you are in the military.
Yeah.
You really are. But
Yeah.
still, it'd be kind of suck to be in Rome and have a curfew.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. See, and he was 23, probably and apparently from everything I've heard, a high-spirited lad.
Rome is fun.
Yeah, I'd never been.
It's
I want to
great.
go.
I
Yeah.
was recently there. It's awesome.
Yeah, I need to go. I'd love to go to the Vatican.
This podcast is really making it easy for me to travel all the time.
Oh, no, yeah.
What's funding my trips to Rome every
I know, we
week.
make so much money off this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, back to the Vatican.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, they after when they released their theory about the brain tumor and all that, they also released a letter, because he wrote a letter right before he committed this act and handed it over to one of his guard buddies, asking this guy to get it to his mother.